Laura is on
Lori is on fire today. She is focused, let me tell you. So I'm going to let her take over. You're almost rid of me. All right. Can you hear me?
No.
No.
That's scary.
It likes Dorothy better.
No, it was getting funky with me too.
Can you hear me now? No? I just yell. Okay. Anybody who I gave a blue sheet to, come on up.
It always is doing this
Alright, now we're all these nice people when I gave them a blue sheet, they're like, oh, Sandy, I like Alright.
Two Spencers in a row.
So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the single big words that you have that all have a number on the back. So yours says number 1, so you're going to go over here and stand right there and just hold that up so people can see it. 7.
I'm 2.
2.
8.
8.
What is your number?
Who's 3?
There's 3 over there.
6, 7, and 8.
4.
Big words.
5.
5. 6.
Big
7, 8, 9. Come on up here. All right, hold on like that. All right. So, yes. In one of your other packets, packets that has appreciative inquiry questions, there is a continuum. Okay? So this is a human continuum. And so it goes from sort of the more closed, you're asking a yes-no question, right, to the more open what-if questions. All right, so they represent the continuum. All right? Now, our other blue card holders have questions. And so the name of the game is to put the people with the questions somewhere along the continuum. All right? So, guided practice. All right. So, Katie, come on up.
Okay.
So if you would read your question.
I saw joyful students. Tell me more about your students.
So I saw joyful students. Tell me more about your students. Where would you put that? Who, what, why is what I heard so far. Tell me more about your students.
I would say between who and what.
Between who and what?
Tell me more.
Why was it joyful? What does that mean?
It's not always about what.
All right, so
This and everything.
let's put you here for a second by the who. For those who think it's who, because I'm not saying there's any right or wrong answer here, right? For those who think it's more in the who, tell me about your rationale for that. It's about the student. The question is about the who. Okay. I also heard what. So for the people who said what, what's your rationale for the what?
What was going on? What was going on? What you know of.
Okay.
Tell me more about what.
So
were
what
they
made
doing?
them joyful? Okay. What happened? Okay. So you can see how it could go either way, right? All right. Any other? Were there any more? Yep.
It could be how, because when
Could be
you're
how.
talking about your students being joyful, you're talking about the how of what's happening to get to the joy.
Perfect. Perfect.
Why?
Or why? And why? Because why? Why are they joyful? Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's somewhere between who and why. All right. You can just stay right Cheryl Marie, can you come up and read your question?
What will it look like when you become a high-impact school?
What will it look like when you become a high-impact school? A how? A how? As in how you'll know, right? Scooch a little that way. What else? What else are you thinking?
The what if.
Okay, so it might be what if because why? It's sort of creating the future. Yeah, well, that kind of sounds good. Maybe it's about creating the future, so it's sort of a what if question. So even though it doesn't say what if you were a high performing school or something and what would that look like. So you guys thought you could cheat because it said what and you were going to put it right under the what, right? All right, so we're going to leave you there. Maureen.
I noticed your office is a friendly place. How do you think this evolved?
I noticed your office is a friendly place. How do you think this evolved? I heard a lot of whys. A why? So somebody who said why, talk about.
Why is that a why?
Talk about that.
Why is it a waste of the kids' medication?
Are we not sure?
Did I not hear why? Yeah. Okay. Why is it a why?
It's a friendly place.
Because it's a friendly place. So why is it friendly? Okay.
Why did you, how, I guess you can't say. Why was that a focus for you?
Oh, why was turning your office into a friendly place a focus for you? Okay, so getting at why that is? I don't know. Is there who says something besides why?
What?
A what? A what? So the what behind it? Can you say?
What was the trigger that got you
What was-
evolving?
What was? Okay.
What vision did you
What was the trigger for that evolution?
What vision did you establish?
What vision did you establish? So more what? So who's got the what? Okay, so scooch just a little bit. We'll just kind of put you guys together. I mean, there's no right or wrong. No right or wrong. Okay, anybody else that wants to share about where Maureen should go? Alright.
He's already told me.
Alright, where's the, wait.
What was the change?
Oh, when? Could be a when. All right, Teresa, come on up with your question.
Do you have particular PLCs that are working well?
Do you have particular PLCs that are working well?
Yes.
Yes.
Which one?
Okay. So that, like as it's written, if somebody was to only answer it just the way you wrote it, it is a yes, no, right? If they decide to elaborate and tell you which ones, they could, right? But then if you probe more, then you could move it up, right? Okay. But that's a pretty closed set answer kind of question. Jen.
What story would your data tell?
What story would your data tell?
Which?
Which? Because why?
Which story?
Oh, which story? When? When because why?
When? Because why?
You guys are like kids. You can't just throw out one word answer.
It's a what, because we're asking her, we have a third point reference, so we're just asking her what would it tell us? We're asking for what the data actually tells us.
Yeah. Okay. So it's more in the what?
Could be in the mouse.
It could be what?
Could be in the mouse. Because they might interpret that as how it got that way.
Yeah, go this way, have what.
Yeah, you're in here.
Yep.
All right. So this isn't as cut and dry as what we think, is it? Some questions are. These, by the way, came from your questions that you generated. All right. Josh?
Where are real-time and embedded assessments being used well in your building?
Could you read that once more time?
Yep. Where are real-time and embedded assessments being used well in your building?
Is where? You're asking where?
Or who?
So I heard where and how. Who wants to elaborate on the where?
Well, where indicates place. But it
Okay.
could be who, which is more realistic.
Where's the where?
Which assessment?
Okay, so where is right here? Come on up here. Real-time embedded assessments being used well in your building. And I heard somebody else say how. Why is that a how question?
How is the who using them?
Okay, so because it's asking being used well,
Yes.
you're asking for the how part of it?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, can we have a hand for our volunteers? You guys can just drop your blue papers right here on the chair. Thank you. So, the reason for doing a little bit of this together. Thank you guys. What's painless, right?
That's awesome.
Thanks, Josh. So the reason for doing a little bit of this together is because you all have the questions that you generated in front of you on that yellow sheet. They just got typed up from last time. And as we are moving forward, because Derek's going to take us into this next piece, what I would invite you to do as you're moving through this next section is to be looking at your questions and other groups' questions and seeing like where they would fit on that continuum and how to help move the questions up, away from the closed-ended side of things that really almost make it seem sometimes like there's a right or wrong answer to your question, and more into that open side, that true inquiry, that appreciative inquiry, and making sure now with everything that you know after a little deeper dive with appreciative inquiry, that they are truly appreciative questions, right? So you'll have a chance to reflect more on those as Derek takes you through the next piece. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Derek.
Thanks, Laura. That was a great activity to do. You'll notice on this screen that there's an asterisk by this why, because sometimes the why can be asked in an appreciative way, and other times it can be asked in a non-appreciative way. So they ask us to be very careful about how we craft that why, so that we make sure that we're not taking somebody down a more negative path and road than we want to in some way. We need some learning tools for the next hour that you'll be together with me for our learning. First of all, we'll need the Adaptive Schools Learning Guide. If you would get that out for me, please. And if we have to share, we'll do some of that. I also have a cheat sheet for you that would be helpful too. The other tool that we'll need is this 3 Ps graphic organizer that you got as a handout today. So have that ready. For part of our activity, you might want the yellow appreciative question sheet with the questions that you generated last time with Pat. And I know that we've been busy. If somebody could secure in the middle of the table, there should be a card, either with an ace, 2, or 3. So if somebody could just know where it is and know what you are, either a 1, a 2, or a 3. We're going to call an ace a 1. No poker, we'll do that later, okay? All right, so learning guide, the 3 Ps graphic organizer, and the appreciative questions. And here's what we're going to do for the next hour. It's my goal, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do this together. I know we will. Many of you have been on a continuum of training. Did you want to breathe air? Okay, we'll come back to that. We want to work on this understanding the 3 Ps. Many of you have had cognitive coaching training. You've had adaptive school training. Some have not. And what I found when I work with principals that I mentor or others, it really helps to actually practice these within an environment. So at the end of this time, we're going to get into small fire triad groups, and one person will be that kind of principal who has maybe an issue or a situation they want to work through. Person B is going to be you, the facilitator, who is practicing those 3 Ps and pausing, paraphrasing, and then posing those questions. And person C is going to be observing and then giving feedback. Did they see the pausing happening? Did they hear the paraphrasing? What questions were posed? And then we'll switch and have that happen so everybody gets a chance to do that. But before we do that, I think we need to go back and do a little bit more learning on clearly all the parts of pausing. Some of us think that pausing might be just standing there and pausing. But if you look at the adaptive schoolwork, there's actually 4 different wait time pausings that we need to learn about. And when we look at paraphrasing, there are 3 different types of paraphrasing that we need to think about. And when we're posing questions, there are some things we really need to ensure that we're doing first before we actually move into that. So we'll do kind of a jigsaw in a way, but you're creatively going to actually invent a mobile app is what you're going to do. And so you'll have chart paper, you'll invent a mobile app, we'll put the suits together, and each of you will share your mobile app that's going to share the functions, the resources, and the things that you want in your app. So I just took you where we're going to go. Let's just remind ourselves about apps and what they do. They provide tools for us. They are quick access to resources, and they certainly help us access information. All right? So your job is going to be design an app that provides the functions, the resources, or the access to information that you would like to have to pull out before a conversation to remind you of these critical attributes of pausing, paraphrasing, and posing questions. So here's what your team is going to do, and I'll come back to this, but you'll design an app for either pausing, paraphrasing, or posing questions. You'll include a catchy name. You'll have an icon for your app. You'll have a purpose for it, and then you'll have a variety of functions. So really what I'm asking you to do is to capture this information about paraphrasing. Capture this information about pausing so that you can teach somebody else about it as a reminder of what they would do during a conversation or a dialogue. So here's an example. This was an ad for a decision-making meeting, and their name was Conflict Buster. Their icon was 2 rams butting heads. Their functions were biofeedback setting to help the holder control pulse and respiration. They had a speed dial connection to a coaching voice fed into a hidden earpiece. Okay? Stay calm, stay calm. There was an emotion filter that removed the negative or confrontational tone from the voices of speakers. And finally, there was a reframer tool that listened for the positive intentions in negative comments to turn it around in some way. Okay? So there's a model or an example of what. So if you have an ace at your table, you're going to become an expert at pausing, page 54. If you have a 2 at your table then will become experts at the paraphrasing section, page 55. And finally, 3s are posing questions, 56 through 58. So you're going to become experts on that section. Now, if you want a refresher, the blue sheet is a graphic organizer that synthesized a good amount of the information that's at the bottom of those. And so you're welcome to use those when you're finished. So what I want you to do is to first of all read clearly each page, and then you're going to go back and you're going to design your app. I will get markers for you when you need them, and there's chart paper by each group. You'll take a look either behind you or hanging up in the air. I have one for each group ready to go. So let's just take a check. What questions might you have? What clarity do you need about what I'm asking you to do? Highly effective functional group. We're ready. Okay, go. I'll take you to the page numbers so you have them, then I'll go back to the directions about what you need to do to create the app.
Wait, don't tell me. NPR. App. I think it apps mirror. We better not use that one. People would remember our app. Makes you pause. The title gives you pause. That's what it's supposed to do. Pause.
I have markers up here if you need them. If you need help finding your chart, I'll do that. I'm going to check in at 1:45, so about 10 minutes to create this app. So be busy and go at it. You're going to teach somebody else about pausing within your same suit. You're going to teach somebody else paraphrasing. So with your app.
All right, do we need anything else?
Talk too quick. Get all the pause. We address the way time thinking. We address the time for additional time to retrieve information. We're allowing the recording feature. Signaling that you need to think before responding. We've got the signaling. We need a flashing light. That's our clicker response. That's the signal, right? That's our signal. Okay.
So this is for slow people?
I just did.
Too slow. Too slow.
There we go.
And then reflection time was that request to get information.
Got it all?
If you talk too fast, you will
Sound. It could be vibration. That's that would be kind of cool. Our sound, our muzzle would be either sound and or vibration. All right. Pressure.
All right, if you're close together, would you show me by your hands how many more minutes you need? One hand. You got 2 here. 0, 2. You ready back there? 5 minutes here.
Here, I'll hold it.
1.
No.
Okay, I'm going to give you 5. I'm going to check in here at 1:50. So if other groups want to add on or do something, but you also have a suit. So what we're going to do now is to share the pausing, paraphrasing, and posing questions apps in small, well, probably large groups. And so when I say go, if you could self-organize and have the 3 groups of, you guys are hearts? Yeah. Hearts right here. And if I could have the spades in that back area open over there. And if I could have the 3 groups that have diamonds, girl's best friend, come right up here to this space. So if you could bring your app sheet and your card, and then meet up here in a group so we can share out within our smaller groups. I give you directions once you get them. So self-organize, give the teams, go. Cards are right here in the middle.
Trying to stay on the video.
Bring your app with you, you should have it. Okay, we look like we're organized, so obviously the person who has the pausing app, that group will share first. And there are two things that I want you to do. One, just make sure you're reminding people through the blue sheet the different types of pausing if it's not captured within your function. And if it does, don't worry, okay? But share your app and why you think this is something that could be helpful for somebody who needs to practice pausing and be reminded about it. If it's your turn for paraphrasing, you'll do the same thing, and then finally closing questions. What questions do you have, or what clarification do you need about what you'll do right now with this larger group? All right, go. I'll check in with you at 2 o'clock.
We're pausing.
The purpose is to open an invitational conversation that functions as small electrical shock for nonverbal cues that are not conducive to open thinking. Voice modulation, specifically at the end of phrases in sentences or questions. Autocorrect if question is closed in. Subliminal mantra for positive intention. Auto word deletion substitution to keep it plural, because that's a critical. And then background music or words from the help. You are
The middle one where
That's wonderful. That's my very creative team.
It's a good way to do it.
Thank you. As I was thinking about this activity, obviously it's not something that I created. I harvested this. But you never know when you're facilitating, thinking, now how am I going to bring this together? And look at this. We chose it in such a way that we have, guess what? A pausing, a paraphrasing app, and a frozen question. We love it when that happens. Okay, please go ahead, Jennifer, and share your pausing app with us.
So ours is called Pause Time, and the app it's the app that you wish others had. And there's our icon. It's to remind people to intentionally pause before speaking. So the function is that it has a timer for the length of time that you should pause, and if you start to interrupt, a buzzer will buzz in your hand. The dog ear flaps up to remind you to, when others are talking, to remind you to listen with that intentionality. And we have an additional item to purchase as a shop collar for $19.95.
Nice job.
Ours is for paraphrasing. It's called the Parrot Echo. As you can see clearly, it already has 5 stars in the App Store. Does take up about 365 megs, so you want to be careful, but it is worth it. It offers some stems for acknowledging, paraphrasing, organizing paraphrasing, and abstracting paraphrases. It also has the option, not only does it give you some stems, but it gives you the option to crowdsource some ideas. So if you have some stems that you like to use, you can send them in, and then they're crowdsourced, and so we're also sharing as a large group. And then we also have an in-app purchase for $1.99 a month. It's only $1.99. We can give you some recorded feedback, which come in the form of notifications, such as, what were you thinking? Try that again. This isn't about you. Autobiographical. Seriously, and what was that?
Ours is called Strike a Pose, so you can either do Madonna, but our icon is supposed to be Rodin's Thinker. So, you know. But anyway, the purpose is to open an invitational conversation. Our functions, like over there, is a small electrical shock if nonverbal cues are not conducive to open thinking. Voice modulation, specifically at the ends of questions. Autocorrect if question is close-ended. Subliminal mantra for positive intentions. Auto word deletion substitution to keep it plural. And then background music or words from the HIL. You are smart. You are kind. You are important.
Let's put those up just right over here so we have an opportunity to see them. So I'm hoping that you captured a little bit of what pausing is about and the different forms of it, paraphrasing and posing questions, because we're going to move into a small fire group triads to practice those 3 Ps, okay? But first, before we do that, take a moment to just think about how might you use and invent an app like this with some work that you're doing either with a team or you're doing at school or with a group. How might you be able to change this in some ways? And then I'm just interested in feedback and finding out what you thought about it and how it helped you as a learner. Okay? You just take a moment with your elbow partner, somebody near you or at your table, and share how you're thinking.
That's what created